What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the College Football Bowl betting preview, part 3. I'm Stuckey. With me, as always, is Collin Wilson. Hope you have your voice nice and rested. We have 14 bowls to get through from Monday, December 27th through December 30th. You ready to roll?
Yeah, I think we're going to average about 2.5 minutes per bowl at the max. So we don't have time to sit around and talk about the second I saw Brady Cook run through a 30-yard touchdown. I knew our Army -3 all the way up to Army -7 was in some trouble. Of course, Monken's kicking field goals. We're not getting the game tied. We're missing 2-point. Elijah Drinkwitz is yelling at kids. God, if we could have just got to overtime and cover all the numbers for Army, but you knew that was going to play out to a 2-point game. But we move on in bowl season.
Yeah, if only they would have went for the 4th down to end the game, which was unfortunate. They punted. Then, of course, they went 80 yards down the field, just like Toledo did to screw my under. And then with 17 points in the final 5 minutes, and then I can't get any points in the final 25 minutes of the North Texas over. They just kept failing at the inside the 5. That was fun to watch.
Seth Luttrell, 1-4 against the spread in bowls. That guy, if he's still in North Texas, that complete fade from now on.
Yeah, that was a frustrating one. They picked up a personal foul flag, which was a clear personal foul. That would have kept the drive going. And then Toledo, that scratched over at the end. They just kept throwing personal fouls to extend drives and then touchdowns. But what are you going to do? The one thing you have to remember, last year when I crushed bowl season, I was getting a lot of breaks. In order to have a huge bowl season, you have to get very lucky. And in order to have a really bad bowl season, you have to get very unlucky because it's just so high variance because you have, number one, who's playing. You'll learn before the game who's out. Number 2, who's motivated. Number 3, you have teams that will just, it's an exhibition. Go for it on 4th down, trick plays. It's just a lot of, just carelessness and non-standard play. But that's the beauty of bowl. So I've had a couple coin flips go against me, a couple good calls, a couple bad calls. We move on and hope the variance breaks our way the rest of the way. And if it doesn't, we march on. All right. So we have 14 bowls to get to. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the Quick Lane Bowl on Monday, December 27th. We have 7-5 Western Michigan taking on 8-4 Nevada. Nevada opened as a 7-point favorite. They are now 7-point underdogs. This game's at 11 a.m. on ESPN at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. So the first thing you have to note, why did this line move so much? I have Western Michigan plus, so I'm assuming they're cooked. So if you're out there, just bet Nevada alt lines. But why is this line move so much? Well, Nevada lost their head coach, Jay Norvell, and he took the head coach job at Colorado State. He took their defensive coordinator, by the way, Brian Ward, he left and went to Washington State. Offensive coordinator, Matt Mummy, he went, and an offensive line coach, wide receiver coach, tight end coach, special teams coach. They're all going with Norvell. The whole staff is gone. The running back coach is the head coach. And then, you have Carson Strong, NFL draft pick at quarterback. He opted out. Their wide receivers, Stovall and Lockhart, opted out. I expect Romeo Doubs to opt out next. Their future NFL tight end, Cole Turner, he opted out. Their starting left tackle, Jacob Garter, he opted out. Their best player on defense, all Mountain West linebacker, Dalen Henley, he opted out. Cornerback A.J. King led cornerbacks in snaps. He's transferring. Henley's backup, Torrey, linebacker, he's transferring. Their backup quarterback, who's supposed to be the future, he's in the transfer portal. So you have 6'9", Nate Cox is going to start at quarterback. He's thrown 22 passes for Nevada. Athletic kid. He played in the Little League World Series for Louisiana back in 2011. He's a lefty punter, a righty kicker, and a righty thrower. But 6'9", dude, that's so big for a quarterback. I think the record in the NFL is 6'8". So who's playing for Nevada? I don't know. I don't know if they'll care. And Western Michigan, look, they're getting to play at Ford Field. A lot of these kids are from Michigan. It's probably a dream of theirs to play there. Regional advantage, time advantage. This game's at 11 a.m. for Eastern for a West Coast team. So, Western Michigan's lost their last 3 bowls. I just don't know. I had bigger hopes than this. I don't see, I think this is the biggest clown show I've ever seen with Nevada. They have no coaches and no players left. So I have Western Michigan plus 3.5 and plus 4. I'm sure I'll find a way to lose it to all the backups, but I love my position now. Look, I think you took Nevada. I couldn't put my money anywhere near Nevada. But you can make the case. Go ahead.
I mean, the more I read about it, the more I found out that this is going to be at least a motivated interim coaching staff that's coming in for Nevada. Yeah, we talk about Nate Cox.
You reading coach speak again?
No, I'm not reading coach speak, just reading the tea leaves of the coaching situation. I mean, when we talk about Cox, he's got 19 passing attempts on the season. 11 of those were against New Mexico State. No interceptions, no turnover-worthy plays. I mean, this is limited sample, so you can't take anything away from that. But do you assume that they stay in the 11 formation and they throw more than 65% of the time on offense like they did with Carson Strong when interim coach Vi Taua is going to be the guy that's calling the shots here? Now, if you want to know who that is, he's one of the best running backs in the history of Nevada football. I think he's the all-time rushing leader. Special teams analyst before he became in his role of running backs coach the last 2 years. Now, what's a running backs coach at Nevada, right? I mean, he hasn't played a role whatsoever. Interestingly enough, Taua played for Ken Wilson, the guy that's going to be the next head coach. Now, Ken Wilson's not going to be there. He's still wrapping up his duties as a defensive assistant for Oregon's bowl game, but he will soon be the head coach. Taua was hired as assistant head coach for Nevada, so he is still going to be there. He cares about this game. In his personal career, he was a 3-time all-WAC running back, over 4,500 career yards, 22 TDs in his senior year, and that was when Wilson was associate head coach. And like I said, Wilson's not going to be there, but what if this is a complete identity change for Nevada to say we are now a running team? We're going to run in 21, we're going to run in 11, we're going to run the ball a whole bunch. They do have 2 running backs. Like you don't pay attention about his running game because it's been Carson Strong for so long, but they actually do have 2 very competent running backs. So I think this is a thing where they might completely change schemes and completely change the way that they're going to run their offense based on who this interim coach is and his past. And based
I would hope they have no quarterback and no receivers.
Right. So I think it's going to be a running game out of them. And listen, for Western Michigan, we get Caleb Elby, we get Sky Moore, an offense that was high in success rate and explosiveness, but they were outside the top 50 in finishing drives. So Nevada was a much better rush defense than a pass defense. So I'm expecting the majority of the Broncos' points to come off of chunk plays, passing downs, explosiveness in the air. Western Michigan dead last in special teams, 116th in tackling. I just think 7 is the point where we've reached the saturation point in the market where people are buying back, especially when Nevada, they're top 40 on defense. I mean, they didn't lose that many players off defense at all. They're top 40 in passing down success rate. They're top 40 in passing downs explosiveness and sack rate. They can get after the quarterback. So Nevada covered every game away from home except for 1 this season. And I'm glad Miami of Ohio won today before you and I started recording, but the MAC has just been pure fade all season. So I think it's going to be an offensive identity change for Nevada. I like it. I'm going to take them at 7. I think it's just way too many points.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll take like a tiny piece of Nevada just because I have a lot of money and I'll be suicidal if I can't win a game with double-digit closing line value after all the losses I've had doing that this year. But I can't see. There's just so much uncertainty from the staff to the players. Dubs, by the way, hasn't opted out yet, but I assume that he will. All right, let's move on to our 3rd bowl game of the day. And to do that, we have to move on to Tuesday, December 28th. What a day, a Tuesday with 5 bowl games. Let's start with the Birmingham Bowl, the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl. I guess it's like a ticket app. I learned about the tail greeter or whatever, where you can find tailgates or something. Well, this is between 11-2 Houston and 6-6 Auburn, noon Eastern on ESPN in Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama. So Auburn has a little regional advantage here that's worth noting. Auburn this year was 4-6 versus bowl teams, but they lost their final 4 games of the season, including a heartbreaking season-ending loss, which was basically their Super Bowl against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Do they care about this bowl? I don't know. I don't see how they really would. It's Houston, by the way, went 4-2 against bowl teams, but obviously had a much easier schedule than Auburn. But I just think that, Auburn lost to South Carolina, and they were just and then they laid it all on the table. Let's win Alabama. Let's beat Alabama to make our season. Then they lose in overtime. I don't know if they really show up for this bowl. Bo Nix transferred. Their starting right tackle, Berdarius Ham, will be out. Starting center, Nick Brahms, is out due to surgery. Starting guard, Tayshaun Manning, is out. Their star cornerback, who's just huge, first-round draft pick, Roger McCreary, he's out. Their starting middle linebacker, tackling machine, probably their best linebacker, is Kobe McLean. He's out. And that's because Owen Popoe, he's been practicing a little bit, but he's been hurt all year. A few other depth guys are also out. Teams also, they fired offensive coordinator Mike Bobo. Houston looks like everyone's going to go, except one big loss for them is Marcus Jones, who's declared for the NFL. Their star cornerback and, most importantly, one of the best returners in the country. But when I look at this Houston defense, unbelievable defensive line, and they're great against the run. They're fifth in success rate overall. They can give up some explosives, especially in the passing game, but that's not the strength of Auburn. Auburn doesn't have great receivers. You have Finley, who's going to presumably be the quarterback, but he's dealing with an ankle injury. You might have this kid Davis that's in there, but Auburn wants to run the ball. Not really a downfield passing team. That sets right up into Houston's hands. These are two teams that don't play particularly fast. And Auburn does, I guess, pass a little more than they run, but they're not like a downfield explosive passing attack. The only question I have with Houston, and by the way, they're number one in the country in third down defense, is will Holgorsen punt the bowl game? And judging from past results and things that he says, he doesn't care about bowl games. He's 1-7 against the spread in bowl games, 0-7 in his last 7, 2-5 straight up. Only Rod Carey is less profitable in bowls since 2005. He's lost his last 4 by double digits. And usually what he does with these bowls is and bowl practices is he's getting young guys reps. He's trying out new things, basically using it as a preparation for next year, not to win the bowl game. However, I backed Houston +3 once I started to see some of the writing on the wall for some of these Auburn opt-outs. And also thinking that Auburn wouldn't care. It's an SEC team, and I think it's an important game for recruiting. And this team was, it's a top 20 team. I don't think that'll punt it, but it's a risk. I don't know where Holgorsen, his head's at. But just the losses for Auburn, especially on that offensive line, that's going to be a problem against the strength of this Houston defense, which is up front. And I think that Houston, who can't really run the ball, but can have success now throwing the ball against an Auburn defense that will be without, some star linebackers, and most importantly, McCreary, who is just massive for that defense. So I played some Houston +3. Hopefully Holgorsen doesn't boot this bowl, but I also don't think that Auburn cares. What do you see here?
Yeah. Auburn with 4 straight losses to end the season. So you do kind of have to question their motivation. Bo Nix is transferred to Oregon. Can't wait to talk about that. His first game against Georgia next year.
Heisman ticket. You going to get a Heisman ticket?
Oh, yeah. We'll be first in line. A new offensive coordinator has been named with Mike Bobo out the door. The biggest issue with this offense, whether it was TJ Finley or Bo Nix, is the run-pass balance. Brian Harsin talked about it multiple times after a ton of games that getting back to being on the ground is the power of the team, yet they would never do it. They were passing way too much. So the rumors of Tank Bigsby hitting the portal were a direct result of him splitting carries and the fact that they passed too much this season. But if you do a little bit more reading, Harsin said that we had to sell Tank Bigsby on our vision of what Auburn is going to be to get him to come back out of the portal. Auburn had 22 rushing yards against Alabama. They had 73 against Texas A&M, and their biggest games of the season, they didn't care about the running game whatsoever. Houston put up great ranks in line yards and rushing success rate defensively, but got torched for over 200 yards on the ground by Cincinnati, a focused Bearcats team. It's a 4-2-5 defense that often pulls back into like a true dime. They're like a 4-1-6 in passing downs. And Auburn would confidently be able to move the ball, but there's at least 3 starters missing from the offensive line. That's what worries me, is there's 3 big starters on the offensive line. And for Houston, you're right. I guess Dana Holgorsen's covered 1 game out of all of his bowl visits. So we'll see if that streak continues. And the best kick returner in college football, you mentioned Marcus Jones. He is you don't really consider special teams players a part of the spread, but he is worth a lot of points to Houston and what they do. Houston had serious issues on keeping defenses out of their backfield. They were 106th in havoc allowed, 113th in line yards, and 110th in stuff rate. So what does that mean? There's no ground game going anywhere for the Cougars against this Auburn defense. It really kind of shut Alabama down in its tracks, and they harassed the Heisman Trophy winner. Houston's success is going to be through the air. Roger McCreary opting out of this bowl is huge because, as we've seen before, teams in the SEC started to just say, you know what, we'll throw everywhere except against Roger McCreary. So with Roger McCreary not there, a monster piece of that Auburn secondary, I think Clayton Tune's going to have a really big day. South Carolina,
well, especially a guy like Nathaniel Dell.
Yes,
having McCreary out there would have been massive.
Yeah, Nathaniel Dell is not only just, Clayton Tune's favorite target, he received more targets on third down than anybody on this team. So I think Houston's going to have some success here. Auburn's going to do their best to make this a ground attack first, especially with the whole, we had to sell Tank Bigsby on our vision for him in the future. If Auburn doesn't go full tank on the ground, they could lose their best offensive player in the portal right after this game. I'm not sure that's some road that they want to go down. So I project Auburn -3 in a total of 54. I would opt to pick out some of those Auburn -125 money lines that are out there. Those are pretty cheap, I think, for this number, considering Dana Holgerson's prior history in bowls. I lean to taking it over if it juiced 51. If you can get 51 bought down to 51, I kind of lean to the over here because Clayton Tune's going to go straight to the air, and eventually Auburn's going to have to do the same thing. And Stuck's right. Houston's front four are really good, but if you can get past that initial line, you can bust explosive plays against them. So I think with Roger McCreary out, Houston's going to score some points, and I think Auburn can retaliate. So my favorite player is the over.
Yeah, I don't have a great feel on the total just because what are you getting? I just don't have a feel for but you seem to have a feel. I don't know. I just don't have a feel what I'm getting from the Auburn offense. Is Finley healthy? Are they going to run it? Are they going to throw it? And then Houston, if they punt this bowl, then their offense might look ugly. And so I'm already involved with some Houston +3. That's it for me. But sounds like you have a better feel on the total than I do. All right, let's move on to the second bowl on Tuesday, December 28th. And that's the First Responder Bowl. Shout out to all the first responders out there, between Air Force and Louisville. Louisville, this line's been sitting between 1.5. We haven't seen any movement past that, right?
Nope.
Yeah, this has been one of the more quiet bowl movement games. The total's currently sitting at 55. This game's at 3:15 Eastern on ESPN. It's in Dallas, Texas, at Gerald J. Ford Stadium. Both teams won their last bowl in 2019, didn't play in one last year. However, the Cardinals did recently lose their first and fourth leading receivers to the transfer portal in Jordan Watkins and Justin Marshall. So that's worth noting. These are two run-heavy teams that are below average in pace. And when you look at Louisville's offense, so that's where they're similar, right? They want to run it, and then they don't play fast. But where they're different is Louisville's explosive, but not efficient. And, Malik Cunningham, you're relying on him to make some explosive plays. They got a lot of speed at receiver. Now that's going to be hurt a little bit with some of the transfers. And then Air Force, they're efficient, but not explosive at all. Obviously, they lead the country in rush attempts. They're a triple option offense. Air Force D actually did a good job in limiting explosive plays this year. And when you are capping a service academy team in a bowl game, you got to look at the run D. Louisville's defense, 87th in rush success rate, 93rd in EPA per rush. They're also 98th in line yards, 99th in opportunity rate. Air Force is top 25 on offense in both opportunity rate and line yards. You'd think that they're going to be able to get a push here. Louisville's also down their top two corners in Greedy Vance and Keytre Clark. Don't know how much that really matters here, but it's worth noting. You're going to have some runs to the outside, and Air Force will will have an explosive pass every once in a while. Defensive coordinator for Louisville, Brian Brown, and Satterfield. Scott Satterfield, the head coach for Louisville, who I think has a perfect record in bowls. They did have some experience facing the triple option at App State. Brown held them before he left for Louisville in 2017. He held them to 14 or less in each of the last 5 meetings. before leaving his post there. Air Force D thrives in getting after the quarterback. Don't know if they've seen someone quite as dynamic as Cunningham, though. For me, it's just, look, Army burned us -3. I got to give credit to Missouri's run defense, played better than I thought. But it's Service Academy. I mean, I just pretty much blindly bet them. They're 37-11 against the spread in bowl games now since 19. I know that they're going to show up. And some of the Louisville run defense metrics are a bit worrisome. So I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm most likely going to be in on an auto play on Air Force here. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to take a different angle on this. I mean, Air Force was on a heater to end the season. Three straight up wins, 3 straight up covers, 3 straight up overs. The Falcons covered every single game away from home this year. This is a team that knows how to travel. That's going to be advantageous against a Louisville defense that loses 2 key components in the secondary. I mean, Air Force is a triple option team, so we really shouldn't worry about what Louisville has lost in the secondary, but there is generally about 3 20-yard passes per game from Air Force. I mean, they can do the okey doke at the end, pull everybody in on the triple option and throw it over the top. So inexperienced DBs could certainly get burned by this Air Force team. And the question is can Louisville defense stop the triple? The Cardinals are outside the top 100 rushing success rate and line yards. They're bottom 15 and defensive rush expected points. So there could be some explosive plays here by Air Force. And the biggest gap in finishing drives is between the Air Force offense and the Louisville defense. It's not even close. So I expect Air Force to score a lot of points. So I'm backing you there. Now, I don't think Louisville's seen the triple since 2004. And the last time Satterfield saw the triple, it was in 2018. He got blown out by Georgia Southern. So those 15 practices that you're given, I mean, you got to be disciplined to face this Air Force team. So the question really, the handicap in this game for me comes down to, can Air Force on defense contain Malik Cunningham? Can you tackle him in space? You see plenty of high grades for the Falcons, like top 10 in rushing success rate, tackling. That's important for catching guys in space and making solo tackles, which you have to do against Louisville. But you get back to the schedule in 2021. I mean, Doug Brumfield didn't play for UNLV. Todd Centillo for Colorado State. I mean, he left the pocket 12 times and averaged 4.6 per carry, but that isn't even Malik Cunningham. N'Kosi Perry for Florida Atlantic, 7 yards per play on designed runs for Florida Atlantic. So there's reason to believe that Louisville is going to get this ball down this field, especially being 5th in rush EPA, and Air Force defense is 126th against the explosive run. So I'm not positive. They have not seen a Malik Cunningham. And little smaller versions of him they have seen have had really great averages of yards on the ground. So both team major advantages in offensive finishing drives, really poor defensive finishing drives. I project this at 58. I'll take it over the key of 55.
Yeah, I don't mind the over two. The only thing that scares me, a lot of runs, slow pace, 4th downs, right? So it's going to be a high variance game. I assume Louisville might be a little more aggressive, but Air Force is going to go on 4th downs. So if you get a couple, probably goes over. If you get stuffed a couple times, as we saw today, you might be in trouble because the pace isn't going to be great. But I do expect a lot of explosive plays in this one. All right, let's move on to our 3rd bowl game on Tuesday, and that is the Liberty Bowl between 6-6 Texas Tech and 7-5 Mississippi State. Mississippi State's out to a 9.5-point favorite, over under 58.5. This game will be played at 6:45 Eastern on ESPN at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee. So this is Texas Tech's first bowl game since 2017. Mississippi State did win its bowl game last year over Tulsa by 2 with brawls at the end, if some of you recall. But it's worth noting Leach is 3-8 against the spread in bowls. We talk about this a lot. The air raid loses some of its rhythm because he seems to take bowls serious. He's like, everyone is a duty to play in bowls. For Mississippi State, it's worth noting that likely first-round pick, Charles Cross, their stud offensive tackle, he's declared for the NFL draft and won't play in this bowl. Texas Tech, a lot of moving pieces here. They recently announced they're going to hire Baylor associate head coach Joey McGuire, but interim head coach Sonny Cumbie, he's going to be the head coach for this game, even though he already accepted the head coaching job at Louisiana Tech. Cumbie was Leach's former quarterback. And Leach also thinks that Texas Tech owes him money. There's a lot of drama here. And so running back, I think running backs coach DeAndre Smith's like overseeing things, but Cumbie's going to be like the head coach during the game. So, Cumbie did say that Tyler Shuck, he's not available, and it's going to be Donovan Smith, who's going to make his 4th consecutive start here. When I look at this game, I say, all right, the only thing I'm worried about, does Mississippi State care? I think they do. Leach kind of takes these serious, but how much rust is there going to be? Because if there's not a lot of rust, Rogers was incredible this year, and Texas Tech has no answer for him. Look at some of these numbers here are, Texas Tech's defense, 114th in EPA per play, 109th in pass success rate, 120th in EPA per pass. The Texas Tech defense, 116th on third down D. A lot of that is because they're 114th in yards to go. How about Miss State? Top 20 in both of those stats. So their offense always manageable third downs, and it's a quick strike passing offense, but it's slow, right? They don't go fast. They eat up clock. They methodically move it down the field through the air. Texas Tech's defense better against the run than the pass. Meaningless here. No one runs it less frequently than Mississippi State. Mississippi State's defense also extreme. I mean, I think that's the most talented unit in this game. They have good corners. They're excellent against the run. So I just don't see Texas Tech's offense doing much with Smith under center. And I think once Mississippi State gets going, as long as they care here, I think that they win this game by double digits. But there's a couple things that worry me. It's the rust, the red zone. Mississippi State has a lot of trouble in the red zone. They don't run the ball. That air raid, once they get down inside the 20, even though Texas Tech's bad at finishing drives on defense. And then special teams. Mississippi State doesn't have a kicker, so I don't like their kicking situation is horrible. Texas Tech's special teams are also really good. It's also worth noting that Texas Tech star receiver, their best receiver by far, he just opted out. Azukama just opted out of the bowl a couple hours ago. So I'm leaning Mississippi State here. I might have them in a money line parlay. What do you see here?
Well, if it was up to Mike Leach, he'd win by 100 points here, but his offense doesn't move that fast, and he's not that good when he gets past into scoring position. So, but it's the bowl game of the day. There's no doubt, there's no lack of storylines here between Joey McGuire being like one of the best head coaches in high school history in the state of Texas, coming off 5 years as associate head coach of Baylor. Sonny Cumbie moving on to La Tech, sticking around to coach this. Leach and his money. And by the way, he's upset over player opt-outs. He's really upset about his tackle opting out, even though this is the same coach that left Oklahoma 2 days before their bowl game to take the Texas Tech job. So I guess it's okay for him. But, I think if you're
there'll be no Mike Leach slander on this podcast.
No Mike Leach slander. I won't bring it up again. But Charles Cross isn't playing. That's 919 snaps at left tackle. And this is the blind side tackle. This is extremely important. And Cross had all the snaps in 2020. So if you're looking up and down this Bulldogs roster for somebody to fill in, it could be, they maneuver one of the other 4 over there, but it's a new position, a new look, a new responsibility. So I think it's something that we definitely shouldn't overlook for a Bulldogs offense that's 6th in havoc allowed, 4th in pass blocking. It's a really strong unit. So Texas Tech doesn't have any kind of pass rush. Defensively, they're 106th in passing down success rate. Texas Tech is going to continue to run their 3-3-5, which Mississippi State should just chew up with their dink and dunk passing. The Texas defense is atrocious.
Horrible secondary.
126th in finishing drives. Opponents have scored on 43 of 48 red zone attempts against the Red Raiders this year. So,
yeah, that's what makes me be like, all right, well, Mississippi State struggled in the red zone, but anyone can score against Texas Tech in the red zone.
Yeah, here's your antidote. Donovan Smith, we loved him at the end of the season. He's going to get his 4th start here. Tyler Shuck didn't get healthy in time. Cumbie is going to pass the ball 57% of the time through the 11 formation. There isn't going to be any changes there. Smith put up 317 yards in the air and 3 touchdowns against Iowa State, which runs the 3-3-5. So I think that's really important when you say, oh, Mississippi State runs a 3-3-5. Well, Donovan Smith, the freshman, has seen it before and had a lot of success against the Cyclones. Now he gets that same look, and I think a little bit less of a blitz rate against Mississippi State. They're at 26% blitz. They're 86th in passing down success rate. Like, they don't really stop teams that have long down and distances. So there's room for Smith to work here, especially he posted 51 designed rushing yards against Iowa State. So he is a quarterback that can roll out and take it on his own and get first downs. It's a total I make 57. There's a small case for the under with the slow pace of Mississippi State, the ability of Texas Tech to run the ball instead of airing it out.
Texas Tech slow too. They play a slow pace.
They're both slow. And so the one area I've always struggled with Leach offenses, and you've already mentioned it, I've said this for years, you take the air raid out of sync, you get them a bye week, or you get them the first game of the season or in a bowl game, it doesn't translate to huge victories whatsoever. So this is a game where I want to play the under, considering the blindside tackle has gone for Mississippi State. There's just a lot of things pointing to it. So first half under any inflated TTU line, maybe I can get up for that, but really I think it's going to be a first half under play that comes through.
Yeah, I think the first half under, because from a total perspective, I'm worried about both tails of this game because, and so it might, and which makes the first half under more intriguing. Let me explain. I'm struggling with, all right, does Mississippi State come out rusty, right? As we've seen with Leach offenses before, after buys, during bowl weeks, after long breaks. And then I'm worried about the end of the game. If they're rolling, it's just Texas Tech. This is his old team who he thinks owes him money. Like Mississippi State's going to run this up, right? Like they're not going to stop. So if they're up like 10 late, let's go score again, right? He's not going to take knees at the end. So maybe the first half under is the way to go.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the fourth bowl game on Tuesday, December 28th. And that is the Holiday Bowl between number 18, NC State, 9-3 on the season, and UCLA, 8-4 on the season. NC State is a 1-point favorite here, over under 59. This game's at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. I wonder if Gus Johnson's on the call for this. At Petco Park in San Diego, California. I think, is this the first bowl game in Petco?
We got to take an under. Yes, it is. We got to take an under immediately, right? Park dimensions.
Petco under. Well, I guess one thing that I haven't looked into that we'll talk about this on our live show, the field conditions. I remember the first couple pinstripe bowls, which we'll talk about soon. The field was a mess. Like they had to wear sneakers one year because it was so slick. And so the field conditions could play a part here. I don't know how you can.
I've seen the way that they're lining up the grid, and the wind is going to actually be 11 miles per hour, and it's going to go sideline to sideline. So that combined with, we got to check the field conditions here. Anytime you get a bowl with new turf, you got to check it out. Like when they used to have the games in Santa Clara where the 49ers play, like that thing was just a big mush pit, right?
Yep. I can tell you that I have nothing on this game. This is kind of like, for me, this is kind of like Florida UCF. I have no feel. I want no part of it. And let me check my latest projections. Yeah, I make NC State under a field goal favorite, and I make the total 58. So I got nothing here for me. All I know is it's like, all right, NC State's defense is good. UCLA's offense is good. NC State's offense is okay. UCLA's defense has a lot of questions. So it's like kind of weakness on weakness, strength on strength, what gives. I don't think motivation will be an issue for either team. It's an intriguing game. I just don't have anything here. What do you got?
Well, UCLA got hot to end the season, 3 straight covers, covered every game away from home except for one. They got over the win total of 7 that we hit on in the preseason podcast. This was Dorian Thompson-Robinson's best season by far, and grabbing Ryan Gunderson as a quarterback coach from San Jose State was just a really big thing, and I think it's going to pay dividends in the future with Dylan Gabriel. But DTR's passing was just fantastic. He went 21-6 TD to INT ratio through the air. He had another 9 TDs on the ground. He hasn't fumbled since week 8 against Oregon. And another big upgrade here for UCLA is Britton Brown is fully healthy. He didn't play the last 2 games of the season. Him and Zach Charbonnet, they created 92 missed tackles. They averaged 3.7 yards after contact. The key to beating UCLA is getting them into passing downs. This rushing attack is still elite. They can get up for this game. Getting them into passing downs and making long distances on third is really what you need to do, especially for NC State. They're number 1 graded pass rush in PFF. That's a really big thing that you want to get Dorian Thompson-Robinson a little shaking, get him a long down and distance and third down, which NC State can do. So for NC State, the program, I don't think they've traveled to California since the 60s. I believe we heard their coach and their presser talk about how big of a road trip this is. High-powered offensive attacks did get the best of Tony Gibson's 3-3-5 defense at the end of the season. North Carolina covered, put up 297 yards on the ground. Wake covered, they put 290 up through the air. This is a highly successful defense, 6th in rushing and passing success rate, but they give up the big play a lot. And that's what's scary when you're going up against UCLA. NC State, 95th in defensive pass EPA. So they can be burned down the field. UCLA passing downs are going to be electric. They're going to decide the game, period. Now, offensively for the Wolfpack, Devin Leary is fantastic. 31 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays. They really back up his TD to INT ratio. His average depth of target decreased a little bit from the 2 years before, but that also pushed his adjusted completion rate, way higher than what he's had before. So, like UCLA, it's a very multiple offense. They'll switch between 10, 11, 20. They'll do anything what they have to do in the mid-game. And we talked about Petco, so we're going to see what the field conditions are going to be there, but keep an eye on UCLA special teams. Punter Luke Akers, he went into the portal. So they're going to be searching for someone to punt. This could mean really good field position for NC State. And to me, this is all about third downs, period. The game's about third downs. UCLA's offense, 16th in the nation in conversion. NC State's defense is 5th in opponent and allowing opponents to convert third downs. The single stat, if NC State can stop explosive DTR plays, is going to be on third down. So, these are two of my favorite teams that I had in the preseason. Even today, throughout the season, I've loved both of these teams, but I'm going to side with the better defense, the better special teams, the better finishing drives on both sides of the ball, and the better tackling team. And I took NC State, and I bought a juiced money line.
Fair enough. I'm gonna try to. I don't know how you can find info on the field conditions ahead of time, but I'm gonna try to dig in there to see if there's anything there.
They're gonna play on the dirt. Maybe create some holes for Hosmer and Tatis there in the infield. Who knows?
Yeah. Other than that, I don't have a strong feel. All right, let's move on to the 5th bowl game on Tuesday, and this is at 10:15 Eastern on ESPN. Talking the guaranteed rate bowl between Minnesota and West Virginia. 8-4 Minnesota is a 5-point favorite over 6-6 West Virginia, over under 45. This game will be played at Chase Field in Phoenix, Arizona. What's with all of these baseball stadiums? Neil Brown, your boy, West Virginia, your boy. He's 4-0 in bowl games. Yeah. One of the most really intriguing storyline of this game is Minnesota fired. So PJ Fleck fired offensive coordinator Mike Sanford Jr. and he replaced him with Kirk Soroka, who used to be the offensive coordinator in Minnesota and then came back. But Soroka was an offensive analyst at West Virginia this year. Now he's hired as the offensive coordinator. Fleck and Brown had an agreement that he would not be the offensive coordinator during the game, but he's working with the team and he's allowed to share whatever he knows. So I assume that's a huge strategic advantage to know the ins and outs of the West Virginia offense in preparation for the bowl. I don't think that's being talked about enough, but he's not going to be on the sidelines, but he's going to help with the entire bowl preparation. West Virginia star running back Letty Brown will not be participating in this bowl. When I look at this game, one thing to note, West Virginia is, when I talk about Kent State can't kick it off, West Virginia can't kick it off. They are horrendous. I mean, the starting field position, the only team worse, average starting field position, the only team worse than West Virginia was Kent State. But when I look at this game, Minnesota, huge offensive line, and they want to run the ball. I think they're top 5 in standard down run percent. They don't run it that well, but that's what they want to do. And they're a super snail. They're basically down there with like Army and Navy, like just run it a ton. And then they want to hit explosive pass plays. Not an efficient passing attack, but just run, try to hit an explosive pass play like Ottman Bell or Wright. The West Virginia offense is meh. The West Virginia defense is meh. Like they're slightly above average on a national scale. The Minnesota offense overall is meh. The one elite unit in this group is the Minnesota defense. And I think that combined with the fact that Soroka can just that coaching edge of the insight that he can provide in bowl preparation, I think that ultimately might be the difference. I wish I got Minnesota early on, but I'm leaning that side. The problem is like the difference between 3 and 5 could be big in this game. I think this might be lower scoring. Lean to the under in Minnesota as of now. Well, what do you see here?
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Soraka, he's going to sit this game out. PJ Fleck said during his presser they made the decision to bring him back to the program before the bowl game was announced. But he spoke with Neil Brown, and they didn't want any awkwardness for the bowl game. So, he won't be in the press box. He won't be on the sidelines. But that does not mean that he is not taking everything that I mean, he was a huge part of West Virginia's game day preparations, a huge part of the game plan. It's a huge bump for Minnesota. When this bowl game was announced, you could see why there was some steam in the number. We'll see how it goes. But, by the way, side note, Mike Sanford Jr. got hired as the offensive coordinator at Colorado. So just take a guess on where our first win total under is coming next summer. For West Virginia, Letty Brown is out. His 1,000 yards, 13 TDs have opted out. But if you look who's next in line, it's Mathis. And, he had 59 attempts. He posted the same yards after contact rate and an equal force of missed tackles in the attempts that he did get. So I'm not sure how much of a drop off we have for West Virginia at the running back position. He ended the season with a 118-yard game and 8 missed tackles against Kansas. I know it's Kansas, but that's still a pretty good game, especially creating 8 missed tackles. All of that said, I think the advantages that we speak of for Minnesota, especially from a coaching perspective, I think that's currently baked in the number. This dead number that's sitting out there right now, I make the game 2. So I think everything that, everybody thinks is a huge advantage, I think it's already in the number that's out there in the market today. Game's going to be slow. It's going to be ugly. Both teams are outside the top 90 in pace. Both defenses ranked top 20 in preventing the big play. If there's a winner in the advanced stats, it's West Virginia. They have a big advantage in finishing drives on both sides of the ball. So there's a huge tackling differential too. Stuff rate, they're top 25 in, which is going to be needed against the Minnesota offense and what they want to do. There's no reason for me to move on a dead number of 5. So I will definitely look West Virginia's way if it gets down to 4. I just think all these advantages that we talk about from a coaching perspective, it's in the market right now. So if the number wants to keep on moving, then I'll definitely take West Virginia. If we get some pullback to 4.5, I'm definitely going to have my eyes on, again, West Virginia.
I think I disagree with that. I mean, I just trust the Minnesota defense, the field position, but maybe the under is the way to go. I can see this one being ugly. All right, let's move on.
They couldn't have picked a worse game for 10:15 p.m. Like, why is this game at 10? Why is Leach not at 10:15 p.m.? Anyways.
Yep. Or NC State, UCLA.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our second bowl game of the day on Wednesday, December 29th, and that's the Pinstripe Bowl, another baseball bowl, unless we play the Yankee Stadium in New York, 2:15 Eastern on ESPN, between Virginia Tech and Maryland. Tech. Both these teams went 6-6 on the year. Maryland is out to a 3.5-point favorite, over under 54.5. Outdoor game at the Pinstripe Bowl. Field's been a little better over the past couple years, but you want to check the weather. Should be cold. I hate Maryland, and I bet Maryland. So everyone should just go out and bet Tech now. I bet Maryland at a pick before a lot of these outfits come out and the line move. I would play it up to -3, not at 3.5. And I don't like Maryland. I don't want to play Maryland, but I'm not sure this Tech team is going to show up here, and they lost a ton of talent to opt-outs. So, and they have an interim coach here in J.C. Price, and the current staff will stay on board through the bowl game as they transition to new head coach Brent Pry. But here's who the Hokies won't have: wide receiver Trey Turner, going to the NFL, their best receiver by far. Defensive tackle Jordan Williams, their defensive end Amari Barno, their best cornerback Jermaine Waller, just a huge loss. Their starting guard Smith, Braxton Burmeister, their starting quarterback, transferred. He won't play, even though he wanted to play. They also lost Tavion Robinson, who's also their punt returner. Their backup quarterback, Knox Kadum, he's not available. He went into the transfer portal. So now it's going to be junior Connor Blumrick is the starter.
Yeah.
And their center, Brock Hoffman, he's going to enter the NFL draft, but apparently he's going to play. So at least you have him. Maryland doesn't have any key losses for this bowl. We know about Maryland. They can't defend anyone in the secondary. All they can do is pass, explosive, not efficient. But I actually think that they can have some success passing the ball here. given that Waller's out, given that all these guys in the front seven are out. And I don't think this Virginia Tech offense can really test this really bad Maryland defense with, a third string quarterback. James Mitchell, their tight end, also going to the NFL. He's been hurt. He's out. So all their best pieces on offense are out. You have offensive linemen missing side. This is just a shell of a Virginia Tech team. This is Loxley's first bowl at Maryland. I think they'll be the more motivated team here. And this is just, it's hard for me to see this Vatech team moving the ball, even against a really bad Maryland defense. So I took Maryland at a pick. I wouldn't play them over -3. I hate this team. They'll probably find a way to screw me. I didn't want to bet on them all year. So.
And here we are. So heavy line movement for Maryland in a game. I would have made Vatech -5 before the huge number of opt-outs, the portal players that includes quarterback Braxton Burmeister. Connor Blumrick had 16 passing attempts this season, no big time throws or turnover worthy plays, an average depth of target of 5.6 yards. There's nothing here to go off of. And, before JC Price became interim, he was the co-defensive coordinator and defensive line coach at Marshall. So offensively, I have no clue what we're getting out of Virginia Tech. Zero. Like from any position, from a play calling standpoint. The handicap on this game, and really, that's not even the handicap. It's a Maryland game. The handicap on this game is if Maryland's going to turn the ball over. It seemingly is the question for every Terrapins time. Every time they're in a game, are they going to lose the ball and lose that way? Net -8 turnovers on the season for a rank of 112th. 12 interceptions on the season, 6 fumbles lost. They only gained 4. If you look at some of the havoc stats for Virginia Tech, it's not good. 127th in passing down sack rate. They're not going to get in the backfield. 88th in tackles for loss. They're not going to get to runners, before the line of scrimmage. Outside the top 50 in PBUs, they're not going to knock anything down. So I don't trust either of these teams. The market is going to run until they find Virginia Tech money. We said this about Hawaii, Memphis. The number's just going to run until they find Virginia Tech money, and who knows where that's going to be. So no play for me. If I was in a pool, I'd take the under on the key number of 55 with the wind blowing 11 miles per hour, sideline to sideline, but zero indication of what the Hokies offense is going to be. So from a pool perspective, I would take an under. I would back Maryland, and I would cross my fingers. This one's ugly.
Yeah. Again, check the weather here. It's going to be outdoors in New York in December. All right, let's move on to our third bowl game on Wednesday, December 29th. And that is the Cheez-It Bowl between number 19 Clemson and Iowa State. Iowa State 7-5 on the year. Clemson 9-3. Clemson is now a 1-point favorite. Over-under is down to 44. This game will be played at 5:45 Eastern on ESPN in Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. A lot of news here. A lot of news. Breece Hall, Iowa State star running back, opted out. Quarterback Brock Purdy he'll be without 2 of his receivers, Joe Skates and Tariq Milton. They combined for 23 catches, 423 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Matt Campbell, rumors out there that he was going to be gone. He's staying. Their coordinators are staying, but that's not the same for Clemson. They lost both of their coordinators. I think most importantly, Brett Venables is gone. He took the head coaching job at Oklahoma. And Tony Elliott, we just talked about, took the head coaching job at Virginia. There's no official opt-out news for Clemson as of yet. The receivers and some guys on the defense are banged up. It looks like Andrew Booth, their star cornerback, is probably going to go in the first round, is practicing. He hurt his foot the other day, but he's apparently going to play. Justin Ross won't be back for the bowl. Nada has a chance. EJ Williams will return as well. Isheem Young, one of the best players in the Iowa State secondary, he won't play in this bowl. So there's a lot of news, a lot of things going on. When I look at this game, my biggest bowl bet of the entire season was going to be Iowa State. I took them plus 1.5. I loved it. I made them over a field goal favorite here. And then, you lose Breece Hall. You lose a defender, a couple of receivers. I don't love it as much. I took a piece off with Clemson +1. And Clemson's now a 1-point favorite. I still like Iowa State. And I think they'll be highly motivated here. They got crushed. Remember that bowl game? Who did they play? Was it Notre Dame? That last marquee bowl game they played, and they were pretty embarrassed. And this is a senior-laden team. that TCU game at the end of the season, they cared. And this team, I think they're all together. Campbell stayed. I think they're really going to be focused here. Will Clemson care? I don't think so. This is a team that wanted to go to the college football playoff. Now you're playing in the Cheez-It Bowl. By the way, every time I say Cheez-It Bowl, I think of that hilarious TCU game. I don't think Clemson cares. And we know the Clemson offense is awful. I think the Iowa State defense can hold its own here. Breece Hall being out is huge, but you can't really run on Clemson, right? Like no one can run on Clemson. So I don't think the loss, like maybe you miss a big play or two here or there, but I don't think it's as big as some people might think for this particular matchup. It's going to be Brock Purdy. It's going to be thrown to his tight ends. It's going to be making plays with his legs and creating. And the Clemson offense is just awful. I mean, they can run. They started to run it a little better at the end of the year, but I still don't trust this offense. Motivation edge for Iowa State, in my opinion, and the Venables loss is huge. Like Elliott, whatever. I mean, the offense is just all they can do is run it anyway. But Venables in-game adjustments, that's just a massive loss for this game against an experienced offense. So give me the Cyclones. I don't love it as much after some of the opt-outs, but I think they get this done in what should be a really low-scoring game.
Yeah, I'm going the other way. I'm taking Clemson. Actually, I really like Clemson.
Wow.
I really like Clemson in this game. I mean, they had 4 out of their last 5 games.
Battle. Hit the ding 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 ding. Let's battle, baby.
Yeah, I mean, listen, king of making shit up and getting my team motivated, Dabo Sweeney. But Clemson.
You and Dabo in bed together. You're gonna be excited to root for them?
We've been together for years. Yeah, I've been betting on Dabo in national championships since before the Action Network was born. There's no lack of love for Dabo Sweeney for me. We just kind of got on his case with pleading you can't be paying the players. But for Clemson recently, I mean, 4 of their last 5 games went to the over. They finally scoring some points, 30 points per game over the last 5. They held South Carolina to no points. So with what pieces they have between the Lynn J. Dixon's transfer portals midseason, between the losing your best defensive player off the line in the middle of the season, they've adjusted and they're still beating opponents pretty bad. I've never seen a team get such a huge swing in power rating down and then power rating up in one season. It's been pretty unbelievable. So if Dabo wants to play the whole, card of, they're not respecting us, we could certainly see that come out. The Brent Venables loss is a big deal, especially in-game adjustments. But at the same time, teams were starting to figure out what it was that he did to steal signs. They were sugar huddling. They were getting around that. And really, I think over this past year, it became more about Clemson's athleticism than it did about Brent Venables stealing signs. So there's a huge talent discrepancy between these two teams when it comes to blue chip talent. And when you take 5-star Breece Hall out of the mix, it becomes even bigger. There is still no word on Andrew Booth opting out of this game at cornerback. That's a big key against Iowa State offense. It's missing, the wide receivers, Skates and Milton. If Booth is able to take
he practiced the other day. He practiced a couple days ago. He hurt his foot, but they didn't think it was that serious. I was reading a practice report.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of.
It seems like he's going to try to play.
Yeah. Well, if Booth is able to take away any outside targets, then it's really about the Clemson front 7 stopping the 12 and 13 formations, the tight end bunches that Matt Campbell likes to line up and try to confuse defenses. And frankly, the real handicap in this game is Brock Purdy. His carelessness with the ball against the biggest teams on the schedule every year continues to be the reason why Iowa State hasn't won a conference championship. They haven't beat Iowa. Everyone's going to point to an 18-7 TD to INT ratio. But if you look a little bit farther past those stats, he actually has more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws this season. He is careless with the ball. 7 fumbles on the season. That's a career high. You go back to Iowa and Oklahoma games, there are just too many mistakes made by Purdy and big spots that led to easy scores. The Clemson defense is top 20 in havoc. They're 3rd defensively in finishing drives. And this offense, like I said, they've scored 30 points in every game for the last month or so. Give me the Tigers here all day. I just think it's a spot where there is a lot of Clemson hate in the market. There's a lot of love for Iowa State, has been since the beginning of the season. But if you take Breece Hall out of this, you stand back and look at these rosters and the sheer blue chip talent. To me, Clemson wins this game.
Can't wait to battle on. What is that? That's the matinee, 5:45 Eastern on Wednesday. All right, the final game on Wednesday is the Alamo Bowl between Oregon and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 4.5-point favorite, over under 60.5. This game's at 9:15 Eastern on ESPN. It'll be played at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Some call this the Alamo Bowl. I call this the Clown Bowl. Insert clown noises. Then you got Bob Stoops is coaching Oklahoma. The whole staff for Oregon and Oklahoma are gone. You have opt-outs everywhere. I have 0.0 clue how to cap this game. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to set a number for it. I don't know who's going to care. I don't know anything. So maybe in that case, you just take the dog money line. But do I want to back Anthony Brown? I don't know. It seems like your boy Williams is going to stay. But there's a lot of opt-outs. There's a lot of star defensive opt-outs for both. Thibodeau's not playing for Oregon. Winfrey and Benito are sitting out for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's second leading receiver. Hazelwood, he's entered the transfer portal. He's going to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler and Stogner went to South Carolina. I think go on and on. Oregon starting cornerback DJ James, he transferred. I don't know what to do with this game. No clue whatsoever. Who's going to care? Who's going to play? I mean, we got a lot more opt-outs between now and this game too. So I'm not wasting time on this game. It stinks. This game's at 9:15 Eastern. They should have put this. This should be the game that's on at like 11 a.m. They put this game should be on at like 7 a.m. on Fubo TV.
Oh, we're not going to go with 11.
I got nothing here.
We're not going to go with 11 or Flow Sports with your $29.99 subscription for a UMass game. Listen, Lincoln.
I'd rather pay to watch a UMass game than this game.
Oh my gosh, I was just waiting for UMass to take the Gator Bowl slot. That would have been fantastic. So
that would have been amazing.
We're out with Lincoln Riley. We're in with the big game Bob, and there's reason to believe that this could be a shootout. And I think there is an angle to play here. Caleb Williams getting coached by Stoops. And eventually you'll have Brent Venables in as his new head coach. But, Williams is not going to be chased around by Kayvon Thibodeau at all. There's not going to be any pass rush whatsoever. And we've seen what Caleb Williams can do when he doesn't have a hand in his face. He's actually been pretty electric. Oklahoma should be able to run all over this Oregon defense that finished the season 124th in tackling and 85th in defensive rushing success rate. What does that tell me? Caleb Williams is going to get past the line of scrimmage, and a lot of arm tackles are going to get broken. He's going to take a few to the house. Even with Thibodeau, the sack rate and passing downs was 5th worst in the nation. That I know we touched on that through October, especially when we were handicapping Utah the 2 times that Oregon played them. Like, you're that bad in passing downs to get into the quarterback. Like, Cam Rising had all day through 2 games through 8 quarters of just blitzing Oregon. So I think Oklahoma's going to score a ton of points. Now, if you go to the other side of the ball, and there's a huge gap in Oklahoma offensive finishing drives to the Oregon defensive finishing drives. It's not even close. So the same can be said on the other side of the ball for Anthony Brown, Travis Dye. They're just going to run as much as possible. Moorhead still calling the plays. Interesting enough. Watch for those Akron tickets, those Akron features to come through the app probably around April or May. Oklahoma's going to be the other 2 best defensive players. You mentioned them. Oklahoma 118th in defending standard downs explosiveness. That's been Oregon's game all season. First and second down, turning the corner around the tackle, getting that mesh RPO going. That's been their game the whole season, and busting. That's how they beat Ohio State, with standard downs explosiveness. So, a decent stuff rate from Oregon is number 1 offensively in that category. They're going to be able to move the ball in this Oklahoma defense. Here's the thing that you should remember, Stuck. I know that you call this the clown show and we need to honk the horn, but you know what that means? Every trick play that's been attempted in college football history is going to happen in this game. None of these coaches have to answer to it. None of these players have to answer to it. These trick plays may pay off in touchdowns. They could end up in pick sixes. Everything will be dumped out of the bag of trick plays because nobody is responsible for their job when it comes to this bowl game. So yes, it is a clown show, but there's going to be some fireworks here. There's going to be some of the stupidest things we've ever seen in college football is going to happen in this game. So considering that both defenses are missing their huge stars, I think over 61 is the play. I projected at 58. This is just one of those things. I'm taking it over here. I'm not going to go wild on it, but there is reason to believe that both these offenses can light it up. and Big Game Bob and Oregon will run as many trick plays as they can.
You're crazy. All right. Enjoy betting that game. All right. Let's move on. By the way, I said we had 14 bowls. We have 15 bowls. We have 4 left. Let's move on to Thursday, December 30th. We'll start with the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Are they going to pour Mayo on the winning coach here between?
They are.
I want to see Mac Brown. Yeah, that's what I heard. Mac Brown get covered in Mayo. Let's start with the Mayo Bowl. And this is going to be played at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina, between North Carolina and South Carolina. And North Carolina is a 9-point favorite here, over under 58.5. Quarterback Sam Howell will play. That was the huge news here, and I think that signals that they care. Mac Brown's also been great in bowls, 14-9 for his career. South Carolina will be without their leading rusher, Saquandre Wright, their star edge rusher, who opted out for the NFL draft, and Jason Brown, their quarterback. He's also entered the transfer portal. That means Zeb Noland, who started the year, the grad transfer, will be the starting quarterback. This is easy for me. I think this is a North Carolina truck. I don't know if I'll have the money line or, this is South Carolina stinks. The poverty. It's Sam Howell versus Zeb Noland. That's all you really need to know. The North Carolina defense wasn't very good this year, but when they played bad offenses, which South Carolina is, South Carolina is a bottom 20 offense. They can't do anything right now. They don't have the leading rusher. They're fine. This is, the South. This has, and I think the only question was you're getting a discount here because it's a bowl, and it's like, is North Carolina going to be motivated? Sam Howell's playing in this bowl. That's all. And then it's like you're close by rival in some sense. I think they'll care here in Charlotte. This is Carolina or nothing.
Well, not to mention that Beamer's been out recruiting. That's all Beamer does is recruit. One of the luckiest seasons on the books for the Gamecocks here to get to bowl season. Some of the worst offensive stats that you can find of any bowl team. And we're talking about some of the MAC teams we've already seen play before Christmas. 118th in offensive finishing drives, bottom 10 in havoc allowed. This South Carolina offense is really, really bad. It's a shit show, and it's pretty amazing that they're even in a bowl game. Not to say that North Carolina's defense is good at many things, but at least they're outside of like the top 75 and not in the bottom 10 when it comes to their defense. But Sam Howell playing is the biggest difference in this game. We're talking some of the best offensive numbers out there, especially from the run perspective. Like North Carolina has been hammering teams on the ground, 6th in offensive rushing.
Howell's very good in that area too.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think South Carolina is going to have an answer here. They really won't have an answer on the ground. They're defensively 114th in line yards. Awful run D, 99th in tackling. So, whatever passes Sam Howell does complete, like I said before, arm tackles are not going to cut it here against North Carolina. I agree with you. I think this is an absolute truck. Can South Carolina score any points? For me, it's like, I think North Carolina -9 is the play. I'm going to play that. Total wise, it's something I make 57 at the key of 59. I see in the market. I kind of want to go on an under on that, but really it's all about if South Carolina can score any points. So with my North Carolina -9, I might play a South Carolina team total under. I know that Shane Beamer cares more about recruiting than he possibly does about coaching this game with a roster full of players that some of them are out the door and he won't be keeping after he gets done managing the portal and bringing in his own recruits next year.
Yeah, this South Carolina, one of the worst bowl teams that you'll ever see. All right, let's move on to our second bowl on Thursday, December 30th. The Music City Bowl, which will be played at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN between 8-4 Purdue and 7-5 Tennessee. Tennessee is a 4.5-point favorite. Actually opened as a 2.5-point dog. Over under up to 63.5. This game will be played in Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Who's going to be there? A lot of Tennessee fans. Almost like a home field advantage here for Tennessee. By the way, this is Purdue's first bowl game in 3 years. The last time they were in a bowl was 2018 in this exact stadium, in this exact bowl, and they got absolutely destroyed by Auburn. Now they're going to play another SEC team who will have a home field advantage with their crowd. For Purdue, all eyes were on the status of their star wide receiver, who's going to go play in the NFL, David Bell, and their star defensive end, George Karlaftis. They both opted out. Just massive, massive losses. The biggest weakness of this Tennessee defense is you can throw on them, like just efficiency, right? They're outside the top 100 in pass efficiency defense. Like you can complete passes up and down the field, but now you're going to be missing Bell. And that Purdue defense, without Karlaftis, he commands so much attention, double, triple teams. It's such a massive loss to not have him up front. And I think Purdue's defensive numbers, by and large, were extremely inflated by an easy schedule. You know, they played the following passing offenses: Iowa, Northwestern, Indiana, Minnesota, UConn, Wisconsin, Illinois. These are teams all outside the top 110 in passing offenses. And they played Ohio State and got absolutely ripped to pieces. So I just think the losses of Bell and Karlaftis are huge. I think Tennessee's a much better team. Hooker is just firing on all cylinders. I think they'll be able to move the ball up and down the field. The loss of Bell just kills this Purdue offense. Rocky Top, I still like them at -4.5. I played them -3, assuming that we would get these opt-outs. I wish I got the earliest number, but I think this is Tennessee or nothing here.
Yeah, and I think for me, the hesitation on this game, I mean, it was a Tennessee play from the beginning, and the hesitation for me was the status of Hendon Hooker, the status of Cade Mays. I need to know that this offense that's the fastest in the nation, plays per minute, that they're going to be able to exploit a Purdue defense that is 69th in big play percentage. They're defensively outside the top 100 against pass explosiveness. And standard downs explosiveness, Purdue defense 119th. So I needed Hendon Hooker to be healthy. He is healthy. He's going to play, and he's committed to playing for Tennessee next year, which was good news for Josh Heupel. And I think that's the reason why we've got some steam. It looks like we've got a lot.
Tennessee going to win the SEC East next year?
No, man. South Carolina is going to beat us all whenever we take an under 8.5. I mean, Hendon Hooker is really what made this offense go. When Milton was running this, he held onto the ball way too long, couldn't run an up tempo, and Hendon Hooker was the perfect answer here for Heupel. So this is a Tennessee play all the way. I think the question is can Purdue get some points up on the board without David Bell? That Aiden O'Connell, David Bell connection was, enough to get us some underdog wins, but I don't think it's going to be enough here. Purdue went over just once away from home. They were not comfortable on the road whatsoever. And Tennessee had 5 straight overs to end the season. So while I have not bet on Tennessee yet, it's a line I make 4, but that doesn't include opt-outs. So considering the opt-outs, I would make this much higher, somewhere around 9. Tennessee is the play. I think a Tennessee team total is a play, especially with the tempo that they are going to force down Purdue's throat. Major special teams difference here too. Tennessee 9th in special teams.
I have that noted too. Tennessee, Velus Jones, one of the best returners, punt and kick returners. Him and Marcus Jones, I think, are 1-2. And Purdue bad in the return game. And Tennessee is one of the best punters in the nation, and Purdue bad in punting. So, yeah, that's worth noting as well. Also for Auburn, by the way. Auburn doesn't have a kicker. All right. Like Auburn, Miss State. Miss State doesn't have a kicker. I'll be curious to see.
UCLA's punter's gone. There you go. So these things are important.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the third bowl game on Thursday, December 30th. And we're talking the Peach Bowl between Michigan State and Pitt. I call this the News Bowl. That's basically what this has been over the past month. Michigan State's now 2.5-point favorite, over under 63.5. Pitt finished 11-2, ranked 12th in the country. Michigan State finished 10-2, ranked 10th in the country. This game we played 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. So Pitt quarterback Kenny Pickett, there's a lot of rumors out there. He decided to opt out. Mark Whipple, the offensive coordinator, he also left. So even for Nebraska, he won't coach in this bowl. And their starting cornerback, Damari Mathis, he's opted out. And on the other side, Michigan State, their star running back, who many had winning the Heisman in the beginning of the year, Kenneth Walker, he opted out. Status of Jalen Naylor remains up in the air. We talked about this on our last podcast. I like the under here. Whipple's gone. Pickett's gone. Narduzzi's at the helm. I assume he's going to get a lot of runs, but just losing Pickett is just a killer to this offense. And on the other side of the ball, losing Walker, Pitt, you can't really run on Pitt. They give up some explosive plays, and Michigan State just all run. That's all they're good at. And then they'll hit some explosive pass plays, which you would think would be matched up well with Pitt. But Pitt doesn't have to commit a lot of resources now to stop in the run without Walker there.
Right.
So, and then with all these guys, these key guys opting out, is a good chance one of these teams just comes out completely flat. So this total has been coming down. I like the under down to 55. I wouldn't go any further than that. The News Bowl, a tougher one to handicap. Line's been all over the place. What do you see here?
This was, for people that are following on the Action app, I bought one side and then bought out on the other based on the news with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett comes out after the ACC championship game, says I'm playing in the bowl. And then a couple days later, he's not playing in the bowl. And we didn't know what was going to happen with Kenneth Walker. I go back to what I said at the beginning. Michigan State, no matter who's opting out or not, Peyton Thorne can still go over the top and hit Reed. It looks like Jalen Naylor is going to play for this game. And so what that tells me is that Michigan State is not going to have any kind of running game whatsoever. Mel Tucker may flip over and decide that this is just an explosive. It's really Michigan State's entire identity, the entire season is we can hit the explosive play through the air, but you're going to burn us through the air. So I'm not sure if Pitt, without Kenny Pickett, Mark Whipple, the offensive coordinator, is gone. I don't know what the offensive game plan is for Pitt. I don't know if they can take advantage of the fact that Michigan State gives up a ton of explosive plays. And then on the other side, is that pass going to be able to take advantage of a Pittsburgh secondary that ranks 61st in coverage per PFF? I'm looking at some of their other defensive metrics. Passing down explosiveness, Pitt is 58th. So that tells me if Peyton Thorne gets behind schedule, they're going to be able to hit some big passes. But my problem with taking the under is that if Michigan State goes pure pass, this game could get over. I'm not sure the names of the players that are going to get points up on the board. I just know that if we increase our tempos, which are 43rd for Michigan and 21st for Pitt, if we increase that for Michigan State and they get up in the top 25 because they're passing so much, there's some bad special teams for Michigan State too. They can allow some sort of TD for Pittsburgh, who's top 35. So this is a tough handicap. It really is. I'm staying away from the side completely. And now that I know that Naylor is healthy and probably returning, him and Reed do make an explosive unit for Michigan State. That doesn't mean they're going to win the game, but it does mean they're going to get some points on the board.
All right. Yeah, that's a tough one to handicap. I do like the under, but yeah, it'll come down to explosive pass plays for Michigan State and the motivation if one or either of these teams end up not caring. All right, let's move on to our final bowl of this 15-game bowl betting preview, and that is the Las Vegas Bowl between Wisconsin and Arizona State. Arizona State's a 6.5-point underdog. Over-under is 42. This game will be played at 10:30 Eastern on ESPN in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Arizona State will be without its two top backs, it looks like. Rashad White declared for the NFL draft, and DeMonte Trayanum, he entered the transfer portal. They combined for over 1,400 yards and 21 touchdowns on the season. That's not great against Wisconsin's elite rush defense. Arizona State's top two corners, Jack Jones and Chase Lucas, they also opted out. Not sure how much that matters against Graham Mertz and Wisconsin's passing attack. These two teams are very similar in a lot of ways. Two elite defenses. And they want to run the ball. They play slow, and they have conservative coaches. All leads to an under, in my opinion, but you are playing on a fast track. I just can't see the Arizona State offense doing much here against a very good Wisconsin defense. They'll be without their starting safety who's hurt, but it's hard for me without their top two backs to see Arizona State doing much. I think Arizona State's defense can hold its own. Although Braylon Allen could have a big game here on this fast track. There's some worrying signs of this Arizona State run defense, and they've had a couple really questionable games this year. And there were a lot of injuries up front for them this year that really hurt, that I think caught up to them. But I kind of want to bet this under, but it's a really low number for a bowl game. Totals this low have not fared well under 45 when you go under in bowl game history, and now you're playing on a fast track in Allegiant Stadium. What do you got here?
Well, I mean, the other problem with a number that's at 41.5, and if you're going to take the under on it, is that Arizona State is 57th on offense and havoc allowed. They are careless with the ball, and that's just been their identity since Herm Edwards has been there. And Wisconsin's second.
And
penalties. Oh my God. There's going to be 13 to 15 penalties here. Wisconsin number 2 in the nation and defensive havoc. So you've got to be worried about Wisconsin scoring without being on offense. That's definitely a huge possibility here. If you were to throw out special teams or defensive TDs, you could make a case. Wisconsin 7th in defensive finishing drives. Arizona State, outside the top 30. Arizona State has no passing game whatsoever, and you're not going to pass on Wisconsin anyway. This Wisconsin defense is just on fire right now. The Badgers offense, they changed with the emergence of Braylon Allen. He's got plenty of time to get healthy here. I think Wisconsin is going to score. Arizona State's defense is 66th in stuff rate, and they're going to have a hell of a time with Braylon Allen and what Wisconsin's going to be bringing down the pipe here. But from a finishing drives perspective, Wisconsin was bottom 10 in the nation. They just were not able to get points up on the board. They settled for a lot of field goals when they got down past the 40-yard line. So that is a proponent for, yes, you want to take the under here, and maybe getting a 7 on Arizona State is good. I'm extremely worried with how careless Arizona State is with the ball. I think that there could be some sort of TD that is not offensively driven here. So maybe the best bet is to play Wisconsin on a team total, or maybe take the Wisconsin side. I'm not really sure I'm going to get involved with the total here. It's a total that I make at 43. So it's already past the mark, 41 being key. We'll see where this lands. I definitely want Wisconsin in this game. This could be a parlay. I'm looking for parlay pieces to go with, say, North Carolina -9, right? Or if you're looking somebody with Tennessee, since we missed the number, things like that. So this is definitely a perfect parlay piece, because I just can't see any way Wisconsin's losing this game.
All right, that'll do it. 15 bowls in an hour and a half. Let's see, yeah, about an hour and a half. Let's put in 90 minutes, broken down as in-depth as you'll find anywhere. Before we get out of here, though, let's go 3 and out. We'll make this, you got 1 sentence to answer each one, so we'll go quick.
All right.
Out of the 15 bowls, favorite side, could be a money line too. I'll go Virginia. Motivation, SMU, lack of continuity, missing 2 of their top wideouts, going up to Boston in the cold in December. Virginia gets it done for Bronco. Favorite side for you?
I'm going to go with Clemson. I think there's too much disrespect. Brock Purdy's never shown up in a big game. This is a very havoc-minded defense against a Iowa State offense that is careless with the ball and does not have their 5-star running back.
Unbelievable. All right, and favorite total?
I'm going to go Louisville Air Force over. I think Air Force is going to be able to hit the 2 or 3 explosive passes that they need. And looking at the Air Force defense, they've never seen anybody like Malik Cunningham. I don't think they're going to be able to tackle in space. I think both teams are. I think Air Force is going to have no problems getting their offense down in scoring position, getting touchdowns up. I think Louisville's not going to have any problems in space running around the Air Force defense once they cut the corner.
I'm going to go, I guess I'm going to go ECU, BC over. I think the way that ECU plays offense, they can have success with their zone running schemes. And I think Ehlers, he's not going to have to worry about the BC pass rush on the other side of the ball. This BC offensive line can dominate the line of scrimmage against a small ECU defensive line. Jurkovich a lot healthier now. He'll have time. I think they're going to throw a little more, but they'll be able to run when they want to. And then he can have time to pick apart this ECU vulnerable zone defense that basically gave up to 30 points to any team with a pulse this year. So give me the over there. And then finally, let's go with
underdog. You want to do an underdog money line parlay?
Yeah, let's do an underdog money line parlay.
I'm going to go with Nevada. This is a team where the numbers just moved way too much. This is still a MAC team favored by 7 in a bowl game. And I know that there's a new coaching regime and an interim, but this interim has everything to coach for. I think he's going to redesign the offense. Nevada quietly has 2 running backs who can put up big yards. That is a problem for Western Michigan, a team that is dead last in special teams, a team that is not good on defense whatsoever, especially stopping the run. This line has swung way too far with all of the departures that have come out of the Wolfpack out of Reno. This is a great chance to take an underdog where, nobody is expecting this team to show up whatsoever.
I'm going to go with Houston. I think these opt-outs for Auburn signal that they might not care about this game. And what's really the motivation too, other than you're in Birmingham. You lost your Super Bowl against Alabama. You lost 4 straight to close the year. You don't have McCreary. You don't have your best linebacker. You're missing a bunch of starting offensive linemen. And you don't really match up well with Houston. I think Houston's defensive line can dominate this game. You don't have, the downfield passing attack to attack the Cougars where they're vulnerable. And I think Houston can have success throwing the ball with Clayton Tune, Nathaniel Dell company against an Auburn secondary that will be missing a first-round draft pick and their best player on defense in Roger McCreary. So let's hope that Dana Holgorsen doesn't punt this bowl as he's done in bowls past, but I'll give you the Cougars. All right, that'll do it for us. Thank you for sticking with us. Let's close out bowl season strong. Let's get those bounces. Let's have the variants go our way and enjoy the bowls. Embrace the variants. Appreciate you listening. Thanks as always, Collin, for joining me. Happy holidays to everyone out there. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And hope you all stay safe. Enjoy your family, friends, your alone time, whatever you're doing, the bowls. And as always, we appreciate you listening and sweating with us. You make this so much more enjoyable. And we'll be back with Bowl Betting Preview Part 4, which we'll record sometime next week. It'll be out. Let's see. We'll be doing the New Year's Eve bowls, which involves Rutgers now. We have 5 bowl games. The New Year's Day bowls, which is 5 more bowl games. And that includes the college football playoff on New Year's Eve. And then we have LSU Kansas State on January 4th. So we'll cover 11 games next week. Looking forward to it. But enjoy the holiday weekend and let's get hot.